The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Julia Jenaé, filling in for Vinnie Politan tonight. Thank you for being with us. The subject of our investigation is the death of a teenager found inside the car of a popular singer. It's a case surrounded by odd details and coincidences. Here's the story. On September 8th, police responded to a report of a foul odor coming from a car. They made a shocking discovery: human remains, the decomposing body of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She would have been 15 on the day before she was found, after she was reported missing back in April of 2024. The abandoned Tesla had been parked on a street in LA. It was registered to David Anthony Burke, who goes by David on stage. He got famous on TikTok and has a young following and has been called one of Gen Z's most buzzed about artists, in part because of his hit song, Romantic Homicide, a song that's now raising questions about his connection to Rivas Hernandez, for whom a vigil was held recently. David's world tour has been canceled, and he's possibly now at the center of a homicide investigation. As rumors swirl about how Rivas died and what evidence there may be against David, still no suspects have been named. And as this investigation continues, more and more details pop up online, including this TikTok that went viral, appearing to show Celeste's former teacher talking about her. It's a video that shows an unnamed teacher showing his students a picture of Celeste, saying she used to be his student, and then he describes an alleged connection between her and a musical artist. Take a look.
That's her in my classroom in front of this poster right here. Okay, hold up, I got another one because I got a picture on TMZ of this other kid exchanging stuff with the rapper who we alleged did this stuff. Hold on a second, because he's also in my classroom.
And that gets us to our first question in our investigation. And is, what was the connection between David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez? Because that's what has everyone talking about him, though no one has been charged in this case. Here to help us answer that question, we have with us Extra TV senior correspondent Mona Abdi and psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. Mona, I want to start with you, also co-host of Off the Record podcast, but I'd like you to be on the record on this and let me know exactly what is it that is bringing David to the forefront of this investigation. We know he hasn't been named by the authorities, but more and more connections seem to be popping up.
Yeah, Julia, so it is important to know at this point he is not a suspect and he's not even a person of interest. The cause of death has not even come back. But what has connected him first and foremost is the fact that Celeste's remains were found in a car in the trunk of a Tesla registered under his name. And that we do know that in connection to this investigation, police searched a home that was rented by his manager, that he was staying in, that he was connected to as well. Now, regardless of the way you look at the relationship between Celeste and David, which more and more information is coming out, seems to have been a romantic relationship. It is odd given the age difference. She was 14 at the time of her death. He is 20 years old, right? There's a big age gap between the two. What we're realizing is through comments and social media posts that have surfaced is that she was connected to him, messaging him allegedly on sites like Discord, for example, when she was as young as 11 years old. And then from her own mother, from people around them, they have said that there is a Celeste that's in a relationship with David. Her mother, I believe, said that she's in a relationship with someone named David. He has name dropped Celeste in his songs. And then now there's a lot more attention being focused on his songs, his music, because if you listen to the type of music, he's a beautiful voice, but it was kind of dark. It was this dark romantic genre. For example, one of his songs is called Romantic Homicide. And in it, he says, I killed her in my mind. There is a music video where he is drenched in blood, dragging the body and putting it in the trunk. And so a lot of people are saying now that all of this has surfaced, even though he's not a person of interest, these images seem odd, particularly given what happened to someone that he was connected to. There was a comment on TikTok that somebody left saying, you guys will find out, or, you know, he's in trouble when it surfaces that he's in a relationship with a 13-year-old girl. And so there have been these allegations, there have been these comments that now in hindsight, with everything that's going on in this active investigation, looks like he was in a romantic relationship with Celeste. She was reported missing on Valentine's Day of 2024. So she, for a while now, has not been going back home. We don't know her last whereabouts, but we do know that she was seen with him, and obviously this tragic connection that we have now.
So many strange connections. And Dr. Janie Lacey, before I get to you to just talk about the analysis of what this relationship could have been based on what we know, I do want to play that song that Mona is referencing, the Romantic Homicide song. The music video was posted on his YouTube channel. Take a look. Dr. Lacey, we know there's a lot we don't know yet, and more likely has to come, especially from police, for us to know how much of this is confirmed. But if we have this 11-year-old girl who's reaching out to a musician who is mainly getting his start through TikTok videos, where we know a lot of young people are, and then we have this teacher saying that she ran off with a rapper, a musical artist, suggesting that that could be the person that we're now seeing these photographs of together, the two of them. What's your analysis of what may be going on here?
Well, Julia, what I would suggest is that there's no coincidences, right? So we're going to continue to watch this unfold. But, you know, what I would add is that when we look at, in particular, these relationships involving public figures and young fans, we need to understand there's an inherent power imbalance. As my co-panelists pointed out, the age difference, among other things. So there's a power imbalance that existed when celebrities in particular, especially those like David that have significant social media following, they hold a considerable influence over their admirers. So, you know, let's assume that that's how this relationship started, particularly when they're young and impressible fans like Celeste, right? If we're looking at her from 11 years old. And when I think about teenagers, especially when we are working with teens, they are particularly vulnerable in this developmental stage. So he had a lot of power in this relationship. You know, when we think about teenagers, they're seeking their identity, their belonging, and their validation. So when a celebrity responds or shows them attention, it can feel incredibly significant, and especially to someone who maybe didn't even imagine that they would enter a relationship potentially with a celebrity. So sometimes beyond what even the celebrity may have even intended, you know, I'd want to say that. But, you know, I would say that when, as a parent, parents need to take heed to some communication, especially in the digital age, because there's so many complications. Social media has fundamentally changed how relationships can develop, especially because we have access to people more than we've ever had. So what might potentially have been, you know, physical now is just a matter of, in this case, like Discord or DMing. It can create an intimate connection, and it can give people access where they potentially may not have otherwise, Julia. So just are some of my thoughts as potentially in this case.
Yeah, and talking about parents who may not know what's going on some of these social media sites, Mona, I want to ask you about his rise to fame. Is he someone that had the attention of Hollywood at this time? Is he a singer that you could compare him to in terms of his fame and notoriety? Because it seems like he was really becoming popular on social media.
Yeah, is he a household name? I wouldn't say that just yet, but he did have a viral song around 2021, 2022 that if I played it for you and you're on TikTok or Instagram, you're going to immediately recognize it. So he was touring. He has, I believe he's a multi-platinum record artist, but he's obviously not a household name. He's more of an emerging artist. He was obviously on tour. He had to cancel his tour dates when all of this came up, but he was someone who amassed a large social following. And as my co-panelist mentioned, that obviously comes with a lot of power, a lot of fame in the online spaces, particularly with the younger generation, and that Discord exchange that people are starting to look at closely with this woman named Celeste and David. She said that she was 11 and that she wanted to go to his concert and that she was his favorite artist. And the reply was, let's make it happen. Now, it is not verified that that is an actual exchange between the two of them, and those accounts verified to the two of them. But it's things like that that are surfacing that people are looking closely to. Another thing I want to point out, obviously, is with the attention on social media, some people might be jumping the gun. They may be making connections that are not connections at all, that just seem maybe like a story that people want to spin. There's a lot of misinformation going around. I've been seeing people say that this came up, or this is not the real Celeste. There's another Celeste that he was dating. There's a lot of confusion right now because there's so little information that the police have put out. And again, he is not a person of interest. He's not a suspect in this case yet, but obviously with social media, news travels like wildfire, and so people recognize him. He had a large following, and they're putting the connections together.
It certainly does, and I want to point out that he has been reportedly cooperating with police. Dr. Janie Lacey, can I ask you real quick before we go, the songs, is it surprising to you if he had a song named Romantic Homicide and it could be involved in a homicide?
Well, Julia, often artists, their music and their art often mirrors realities in their life that inspires their music expression and their artistic expression. So I would lean that there's probably not some coincidences here, especially with the connections that we do know are facts. So I would believe that there's some level of connection and inspiration.
Mona and Dr. Lacey, thanks so much for joining us. We have a lot more ahead coming up next. Could those songs we're talking about be used as evidence?
The Court TV podcast will return.
That is a clip from David's song, Where Did It Go Wrong?, uploaded to his YouTube channel. Real question in our investigation is, where did it go wrong for Celeste Rivas Hernandez? Her body was found inside of the vehicle of this singer. And even though he has not been charged in this case, it's raising a lot of public scrutiny and questions, especially when we look at this resurfaced interview clip that many are finding interesting. It's David speaking with Mahogany in March, talking about how he makes his music videos, and listen to how he describes an alter ego of his.
An evil version of me named Tommy, which means pain in Japanese, and he wears his blindfold, and he's basically an agent of chaos and kind of my alter ego. And the story of the manga went like I was a detective, and there was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments, kind of like Fight Club with Tyler Durden. And he would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective.
David has songs that include Romantic Homicide and Body in a Trunk. So that gets us to the next question in our investigation. Could David's songs be used as evidence if there is a case against him? Here to help us with this investigation is celebrity lawyer Chris Melcher. Chris, thanks so much for weighing in on this one. Let's talk about this singer. And I want you first to react to that interview clip. If this case became one where we have charges and if we're in front of a jury, do you think a statement like that from him would be admissible evidence?
Well, Julia, we've seen in many of these prosecutions against artists attempts to use their art, whether it's a song lyric or other artistic expression, as some kind of evidence of guilt. And that's become very difficult. In California, where if there were a case brought, that's where it would be. We have evidence code 352.2, which says that there's really minimal relevance or importance to song lyrics unless the song was written close in time to the event, or if it had information that wasn't publicly available, or that it was distinctive about what was said in the song versus what happened in the alleged crime, versus the potential that the jury would be confused that this is just stereotypical evidence of guilt. So I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, we've seen lyrics in some situations come into the picture. In the case against Jeffrey Williams, a.k.a. Young Thug, in the YSL trial, they were able to use lyrics. And I want to particularly, Chris, let you listen to one of these clips from a song called Body in the Trunk. It's a music video. It was uploaded in February to David's YouTube channel, and it shows him in a costume where he is dragging a body. Take a look. Let's bring back into the conversation Chris Melcher, and former federal prosecutor and president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. Nima Rahmani is joining us now. Nima, got to get your reaction to that one. We've got a case. He's not been charged, but a body found inside of the trunk of his car. And we have there this music video, not saying that it is anything more than a coincidence, but what do you think, if there are charges in this case, as to whether or not that could be evidence?
Julia, Chris is absolutely right. I mean, California does have a higher threshold. You can't use artistic lyrics, rap lyrics, oftentimes in criminal cases, unless there's a clear nexus to the crime. In this particular case, David may have some problems because there is a song called Romantic Homicide. I'm not saying that's going to be enough, but there's also an unreleased song named Celeste. I think that is going to be a particular problem. If the song title or the lyrics have a clear connection to the case where it can be an admission, then that's going to come in. You can't use song lyrics in general to show someone is violent or they're part of some gang culture. But if there's a specific admission in a song, I think a judge may rule that it's actually going to come in this case. And obviously Celeste is not an uncommon name, but certainly the fact that the victim, or at least the alleged victim here, is named Celeste, and there's a song about her, I think a judge is probably going to rule that that's going to come in.
Well, let's take a listen to that song, Nima, because that, like you said, was a leaked, unreleased song of David, so it wasn't one of his wildly popular ones. Who knows if he wanted it out in the public, but it's about someone named Celeste, created in September of 2023. So this would have been about 5 months before Celeste Rivas Hernandez was reported missing.
Just because I love you so much.
Now, Chris, do you agree with Nima that that song, even though it isn't as explicit as Romantic Homicide and the one about the body in the trunk when it relates to murder, but it's still one that bears the name that connects perhaps to our victim here?
Well, that's right. There seems to be a connection, but there's plenty of other evidence that we've heard about that connects these two together in some kind of relationship that they have. So my sense is that a prosecutor is not going to want to take the risk of an appeal, or the judge won't want to see an appeal be successful. So these may not see the light of the day if there were ever a trial. And also note that the Romantic Homicide video or song was, I think, 3 years before this incident, and the body in the trunk one was, many months before her death apparently occurred. So I think it's going to be difficult to get these songs in, honestly.
Yeah, Nima, does that timing impact things in terms of when he was recording these? Because could there also be the argument that someone knew this about him and could perhaps have framed him?
Well, let's not forget, I mean, at least according to Celeste's middle school teacher, she had run away once before with someone named David, and she was returned by law enforcement. Obviously, this is an early investigation, but it seems like, at least according to what's been reported and what we're seeing on social media and what the news outlets here locally in LA are reporting, is that there is some history between these two, at least allegedly, right? So the fact that a song was written months or even years earlier may still cover the time period of the relationship. You know, Celeste Rivas may have known David from the time she was as young as maybe even 14. So this is something, or perhaps even earlier. So this still may fit within the time frame here. And again, I agree with Chris. There's plenty more evidence in this case. Obviously, search warrants have been executed. Finding a body in the trunk of a car that's, you know, yours, you're the registered owner, that's a big problem. And that's much more smoking gun evidence, especially the fact that the body is dismembered in the front. So the prosecution may not need this in this case, but it's certainly not outside the time frame, at least that has been reported.
Chris, real quick before we have to go, why don't we have an arrest yet in this case, in your opinion?
Well, I think the detectives are going to take their time and gather evidence and look at cell phones, look at other people who may have known about the relationship, put pressure on them. They can take their time. He's not going anywhere.
Chris Melcher, thank you so much for joining us. Nima Rahmani is staying with us. We are going to talk more about this case on the other side of this break. Question is, what happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Julia Jenaé, filling in for Vinnie. We continue our investigation into the possible connection between a popular singer and the death of a teenage girl. As many questions remain about her death, here's a look at the story. Nearly a year and a half after she was reported missing, the decomposing remains of a teenager, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, were found in the trunk of an abandoned Tesla. She would have been 15 on the day before she was found. The Tesla had been abandoned on a street in LA and was registered to David Anthony Burke, who goes by the name David, spelled D4vd. He got famous on TikTok. His rise in popularity led to a world tour. He has a hit song called Romantic Homicide, and he's now possibly at the center of a homicide investigation. As family members held a vigil for Celeste Rivas Hernandez, questions remain about her connection to David and what evidence there may be against him. Some are pointing out details from multiple music videos that reference death, murder, and perhaps Celeste Rivas Hernandez herself. Still, no suspects have been named. And though things have been pretty limited in what we've gotten from police in this case, the medical examiner's office has shared some information, including the medical examiner report at this stage. It's initial, it is not full, but they list out that the manner of death has not been determined. It's left blank on the form. And the cause is shown as deferred, pending additional investigation. In terms of the body status, they say that that body has been released. That means to the family of Celeste Rivas. And we also have this statement from the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner that says, quote, the decedent was found severely decomposed inside of a vehicle on September 8th of 2025, and she appears to have been deceased inside of the vehicle for an extended period of time before being found. So with that information, it brings us to the next question in our investigation. And that is, what happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez? Based on what we have so far, what do we know? Here to help us answer that question is entertainment journalist Shishi Yang and board-certified forensic pathologist Dr. Priya Banerjee. Thank you both for weighing in on this case for us. Dr. Priya, let me start with you. When you see that medical examiner's report and we have that the cause of death is deferred and nothing listed for manner, but the body has been released, what does that say to you?
So, no doubt, this is a very complex case. And what we're dealing with is, with this advanced decomposition that they are now highlighting, we have to seek alternative methods to even test for routine items or routine aspects of the case, like toxicology. And usually when I handle decomposed remains, there's forensic anthropology involved as well. So it's not unusual to me that it's not a slam dunk right off the bat. This is a very common practice. Deferred may not be the language. I usually use pending further studies, which sort of encompasses everything that needs to be tested. So I think that's where we stand. And I don't usually issue a manner of death with a blank cause of death or vice versa. So, both of them being deferred or pending, whatever the language may be, is consistent. Now, how we get to what happened to her, given the advanced state of decomposition, I think is going to be very challenging. So we have to see what they get in their data and analysis from that.
Yeah, Shishi, let's talk about that, because the reporting initially said things like decomposition and even dismembering. We haven't heard that as much now. Of course, police not sharing a lot and the medical examiner only sharing bits and pieces. But what are you hearing in terms of the state of this body that was located?
Absolutely horrible, Julia. I know LAPD is holding a lot of things close to the chest. In my opinion, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, she was a 14-year-old who was completely failed by our system. Almost everyone in her life who was supposed to protect her. Her decomposing body was found on September 8th, just a day after what should have been her 15th birthday. And when LAPD quickly realized that this was a test that was registered to one of the hottest up-and-coming artists, David, that's when we started hearing more about Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her name started popping up all over the headlines. So here's what we do know so far.
All right, we're having a bit of trouble, Gigi, with your sound. So let me bring back in Priya Banerjee and talk about this medical examiner's report. And you mentioned this, the decomposition. And I asked this of Shishi, so I want to ask your opinion as well. We thought there may have been some issue with dismemberment. But with the body being released, do you think that that means that they do have the complete body, for lack of a better term? Or would they have held on to that if the police were still looking for parts?
Sure. So in general, we try to release the body out of respect to the family as soon as possible. So that usually needs identification to be performed, as well as the actual examination. Now, in my prior dismemberment cases, I have kept, if it's truly dismemberment, I've kept ends of bones to try to analyze them for tool marks. And that's where this gets to be a very sophisticated, much more extended examination rather than a regular autopsy. But you can keep a small sliver, because that's what's called tool mark analysis, if we have a candidate weapon, to see if that's the weapon that matches. On the bone, it basically carves out the bone and leaves like a mirror image stamp on it. But there's no reason to hold the entire body. We can take small samples for microscopic examination if needed, blood samples, but there's no reason to hold the whole body. The only time the release of a body, especially in decomposition, that's delayed, I would say, is purely for identification purposes. We need to know who this is. And once that's done and the examination is done with adequate sampling, the body can be released.
Okay, and Gigi's still with us. I want to let you finish what you were saying, because it was fascinating about what may have been missed in this case, because she was 13 when she went missing and reported missing, but it's been over a year that this has been the status.
Absolutely. And, David is an artist who has really built his entire following and his fame on social media. So when you have someone that got big because of TikTok, it's really easy for the ecosystem and the internet that built you, all the fans, to go back to see every single digital clues and evidence that you may have left behind, every single post, every single photo, every single video. And with the fans, our discovery is really, really alarming. So David had a big online community on Discord where he would connect with all the fans, talk to them every day. And fans were quick to point out that there was a user on Discord. Her username has now been deleted, but this was someone called Celeste. Now, we don't have any confirmation that this is our Celeste, the victim, but if that is the case, that means Celeste was on Discord talking to David as early as fall of 2022, which means she would have been barely 12 at the time, and he was 17. So to me, and I think to everyone, this is not a love story if this is true. This is grooming, and it is disgusting. It is absolutely alarming. And what is shocking to me is the fact that it seems like everyone around Celeste, the mother, right, told police that she was aware that Celeste had a boyfriend named David, even though there's no confirmation that this is David the artist. The brother told the press that the last time they saw Celeste, she was going to the movies with her boyfriend David. And in that video that we saw of Celeste's teacher earlier in the show, he said that Celeste was going to school, telling everyone about her relationship with an artist. She was going to go see this artist in LA, and her classmates knew about it. And in that video, it was also shocking that the teacher was also claiming a few of Celeste's classmates were even allegedly blackmailing David for hush-hush money to keep it quiet, right? That he was dating a minor. So to me, it's really disheartening to see how many people could have really protected this child before it was too late.
Yeah, and when you mention all of those details, we also have to emphasize he has not been charged. He is reportedly cooperating with police, but there could potentially be many charges, not just one connected to this body found in his trunk. I want to read something that was reported on by Kevin Wong with Yahoo Entertainment, and this involves what you're talking about, Shishi, with the sightings of Celeste in some of the work of David. So her mother, as you mentioned, claimed that he was dating someone. She was dating someone named David at the time of her disappearance. There's a photo showing David the singer in Lake Elsinore prior to her disappearance. That's only a short walk from where she lived. We also have photos of David the singer with a girl who looks a lot like Celeste, dating back to the time before she went missing. And in a lot of them, this unidentified female is covering her mouth, partially obscuring her face, either with a bag or a hoodie. And the clearest look we get is in a video of David the singer, where again, he's with a girl who looks a lot like Celeste, and he's answering questions on a live stream. He instructs the moderators to delete that evidence once the stream is over. Dr. Priya, going back to the forensics of this, we know that there's not been anything released from the medical examiner's office that this was a homicide or a suicide or an accident. They haven't said anything. But is it potentially that we could see something other than a homicide come out of this case?
Well, that's my serious concern based on the condition of the body. So, I mean, I'm completely speculating and speaking just from experience, you know, we could even see an undetermined, which means that the condition of the body limits full sort of identification of a cause of death. And, you know, obviously if she's put in the trunk and dismembered after something happened, that's not necessarily a homicide. So I'm just hoping my colleagues, you know, use all the information they can, you know, X-ray, full body scan, analysis, toxicology, whatever it may be, to be able to pinpoint something. I have my fingers crossed, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities that an undetermined manner, undetermined cause of death in undetermined manner could be a possibility. Now, that's one piece of the puzzle, though, and like my colleague said, you have to put it all into context. Like, what is the computer data going to show? What is the cell phone data? He has a huge online presence. And this day and age, I wait with bated breath when I'm the ME on any case for them to sort of chase down what information. That's just the reality now, right? It's not pen and paper. It's an online presence, Snapchat, whatever is hidden, Discord. So that would add to the manner of death, too, if there's information that leads to, you know, set the tone or set what was going on and how she ended up there. So when it's challenging from a medical perspective, that's when really the investigation comes into play.
That is such good insight to know that even the medical examiner's office, who we think of very scientific looking at the body, they're also waiting for that digital evidence as well. Dr. Banerjee and Shishi Yang, thanks so much for joining us and talking about this case.
Thank you.
We are going to talk about on the other side, though, what we can learn from the Tesla where Celeste's body was found.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Why am I still here?
That is another clip from David's song Romantic Homicide, uploaded to his YouTube channel. It's just another one of the strange details surrounding this death investigation, the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, the singer has not been charged and not named as a suspect, but one of the biggest details that link him to the death of Celeste is that her body was found inside of his Tesla. The Tesla registered to David was reportedly a 2023 Model Y. So we wanted to look at some of the details and specs on that particular vehicle. And it does have certain cameras, and this is according to Tesla.com. It says your Model Y includes the following components that actively monitor the surrounding area. A camera is mounted above the grille on the front bumper. A camera is mounted above the rear license plate. A camera is mounted in each door pillar. 2 cameras are mounted to the windshield above the rear view mirror. A camera is mounted to each front fender. Your Model Y is equipped with a cabin camera located above the rear view mirror, and your Model Y is equipped with a front-facing camera located above the grille on the front of this vehicle. So the last question in our investigation, as it still continues, is this: what can we learn from the Tesla? And to help us answer that question, let's bring in former federal prosecutor and president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani, with us. Nima, good to have you. Teslas and how they can be used as evidence. I'm so curious about this topic because with all of these cameras that users say does record continuously, we saw that there in the manual, is that something that investigators are able to use?
Absolutely, Julia. I've had 4 Teslas and I still have one right now, and the cameras contain a treasure trove of information. In that glove box there's a USB and it's constantly recording. So I've used it in different types of civil cases. Obviously you can use it in criminal cases. And one other important thing about the Tesla to know, setting aside the camera, is the technology. I mean, where that vehicle goes, you're going to be able to subpoena that information from Tesla, and you're going to find out where it was before it was impounded and the tow yard discovered the body or the stench of the body decomposing in there. So you're going to have a lot of information. Here's one important thing to know about the Teslas as well. They have a frunk, which is a trunk, in the front, and it's very small. So even someone as small as Celeste Rivas, who was, I believe, a little over 5 foot, maybe 5'2", you're not gonna be able to fit in the frunk like you can in a trunk. So the fact that the body was dismembered and chopped into many pieces, look, could have been an accident and done afterwards, but it's very likely a homicide. So whoever had access to the vehicle, and David reportedly had multiple vehicles, they're gonna know whether it was Bluetooth, whether it was one of the key cards that you're using to access that car, who had it, when it was open, when that frunk was open. That's all information that law enforcement is going to get. So whether it's David or someone who had access to David's vehicle and put that body in there, it's probably just a matter of days before we get an arrest by LAPD.
Yeah, that's interesting information about the size of that frunk, because we don't know the details beyond severe decomposition. Dismembering has been sort of thrown around, but we don't know if she was inside intact or in parts. And you mentioned the camera in the front. It likely would be, and if we look at the photograph, just based on what the manual says about where that camera is located, I'm understanding it's not actually on the front itself, as in it wouldn't go up and you wouldn't be able to see anything after that. It's actually below on the grill. So it would be able to see perhaps someone walking up. Is that right? Is it motion detected so that it starts recording immediately?
It is, and there's different modes. Oftentimes people with Teslas have their Sentry mode. So if anyone goes near the car, it's going to record it. That's going to be an event that is going to be captured on the camera. Now, obviously, you can turn that off. You don't have to have it record all the time. Like anything else, there's privacy settings. But if there is a triggering event, the electronic data is going to record it automatically, whether you want to or not. And that vehicle, before it was impounded, reportedly had a dent in it as well. So maybe that's information that's going to come. And speaking of cameras, today it was reported by the homeowner who owned the home that David was renting that there's cameras all throughout that home on the exterior. So we're going to know who came into and out of that house. Again, it's just a matter of time. I expect the culprit here, it could be David, it could be someone else entirely, we don't know, to be caught on camera, whether it's a Tesla camera, home, Ring camera, or some other type of camera. It's just a matter of time before the perpetrator is brought to justice.
Nima, you're there on the West Coast, so I got to ask you this about how the LAPD often handles things. I was an investigative reporter in Florida. We had sunshine laws. You could get police reports pretty quickly. California, particularly the LAPD, I feel like they're a little different in how they release information to the public. Can you attest to that?
Yes, I can. I live and work in Los Angeles, and I used to work for City Hall in LA. I have a lot of respect for LAPD, but I'm going to be very honest. They are not transparent and forthcoming when it comes to investigations, particularly a murder case. So we may get that camera video some point down the road after someone's arrested and charged. We might see it when the case goes to trial, right? Maybe it's a trial we'll be covering live here on Court TV. But to get information out of LAPD through a Public Records Act request or a subpoena, it's not going to happen while the case is pending. And LAPD, and again, I say this with all due respect, they're so backed up right now. Even in a traffic collision case, it can take more than 6 months to get a report from them, something that rises nowhere near a murder. That's unfortunately one thing that we're dealing with in the city of LA. There's a significant delay when it comes to reports. And even when they do have the evidence, they're not really forthcoming when it comes to the public. They really fight providing that tooth and nail. You do have to litigate it to get it.
So they may be delayed in terms of just their own reporting, but Tesla has to turn this over, I'm assuming. What do you think that process is like? And if it's recorded in the vehicle, is that going up into a cloud somewhere?
Potentially, yes. If it's something that recorded, Tesla may have it. But again, that USB in the glove compartment, that's going to be critical evidence. Law enforcement needs to get that right away, do a download, because again, it's going to have a full download, not just of the video, but all the events, when the door was open, when it was closed. And again, if you're talking about the frunk, it's not really easy to open. It's not something that you typically use. Most people put, if you have any groceries or anything, in the back, because the frunk, it's almost like a trunk of your vehicle. Let's say you have a gas car and you want to pop the hood to check the engine. It's essentially like that, except that space is empty and smaller. So you can place items there, but it's not something that you're typically using because of where it's located and the size. We're going to be able to know when that frunk was open, and that's going to be key evidence in the case. Obviously, there's been reports that the body...
It's going to be huge, absolutely. Nima Rahmani, thank you so much for all of your legal analysis this hour. We so appreciate it. We have to go for now, but we are wondering, could this investigation blur the line between freedom of speech with an artist who's expressing themselves in a creative way, or is this the case of an artist mirroring violent tendencies through their music and videos? The one thing we do know for sure, a young girl lost her life all too soon in a tragic manner. And the biggest question that remains in this case, will justice be served for Celeste Rivas Hernandez? I'm Julia Jenaé. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.